Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. So today what I want to do is I want to speak to you about the first 5 things that I recommend that new preppers buy. So if you're an older prepper and you're really more into the community and you have a good knowledge and understanding of this is not going to be the video for you. This is for people who are just starting to think about, becoming more prepared, becoming more self-reliant. I've got a few caveats that I'd like to talk about here before we get going. Number one is that I don't know your situation, right? So it's impossible for me to come up with a video that is going to fit your situation exactly, because people who live up in the northern tier states are going to have different situations and different needs than those people who live in the southern states and all that kind of stuff. So please take this as, with a grain of salt. And it's meant to be a very general, kind of a generalized setting that would work that would help you the most in most situations. The other thing is that I come at this with a little bit of a philosophy in that, I think it's most important to prepare for the high probability, low impact items first, and the more we are prepared for those high probability low impact things, then the better we become prepared for those things that are low probability with an extremely large and high impact. So a low probability impact might be your house catching on fire, or having a snowstorm where you're without power for a few days, or a tornado, or something along those lines. Whereas a high probability or a low probability with high impact is going to be something along the lines of an EMP or a nationwide grid down, situation or something like that, where it's a catastrophic deal and there's going to be a massive impact on society. So for those that are starting out, I recommend that you start with looking at those things that are high probability, that do happen frequently, and then but they have a little bit smaller impact. So, but with that in mind, we're also trying to build upon each one of the things that you get, so that you're more prepared for those big high probability or the big low probability things that have a huge impact in the end. So the stuff that you buy in the beginning, you don't have to re-buy down the line. You want to try to make smart choices so that the stuff that you have now you could use later if nothing ever happens, in here. So that's kind of the mindset we're going with. The other thing is, I apologize for all these caveats, but stuff like this is kind of hard to do because of the situations that everybody could have. So I'm trying to make it fit as best as I can. So the other thing is that I'm going off of the assumption that there's an 80% chance that you're going to stay in your home. But there's a 20% chance that something could happen where you would have to leave. So what you'll find in this series, and I plan on doing a few of these, is that 3 or 4 of the items are going to be stuff that is primarily geared towards bugging in and staying in your home. And then there's 1 or 2 items that would help you in a situation if you had to bug out. So that is kind of where this thing is going. Stick with me, and we'll talk about the first item. And again, these are in no particular order. Okay, so the first item that I think every prepper should have, the very first investment that you make, and again, it's the first of the 5. You can choose which order you want to make these 5 in, because they're all equally important in different ways. But the first one we're going to talk about here is a good pistol. I think that a good self-defense type pistol, like this is a CZ75 SP01 Phantom, a high capacity 9mm pistol is a good item to have right up front. And the reason I say that is because in desperate times, desperate people do desperate things. And you need to be able to protect yourself and your family from those desperate people, because they'll find you. And so, A pistol can be used in a lot of different situations. It can be used for a lot of different things, not just self-defense. It could be used for offense. It could be used for hunting if you had to. Not the best choice for hunting, but it could be used for it. You know, a good pistol, I recommend the things that I would want to have in a pistol it's going to be a high capacity magazine. I'd recommend, you know, at least 13 or more rounds. CZ75 is a good option. It's a very nice gun. It functions well. It's accurate. They're very cost effective as well. You know, they're not high dollar guns. So, you know, this is a nice little option for that. This in particular one holds 18 plus 1 in the chambers, you get 19. You could also go with something a little bit more traditional. This is a Glock 23, and probably the lowest capacity that I would go with, but I also have a Lone Wolf custom barrel for this, so I can, with some Glock 19 magazines, I can shoot 9mm with it, and also hold 15. So these both have lights on them. That's because these are my 2 home defense lights. You don't necessarily have to have a light on it right away or anything like that, but they're a good option if you so desire. Let's see. There's a ton of other guns out there. I'm not saying that CZs or Glocks are the only ones. I like both of those. I also like Sig Sauer. The Sig Sauer 228 is a great gun. And there's just tons of great guns out there. I have a Shield, which I carry for my EDC gun. That's a little lower than I would capacity that I would recommend getting for your first gun, though. Anyhow, you get the point. This is just a generalized, thing. If you're going to start into prepping, you need to have a firearm, and it should probably be a high capacity 9mm. Lots of different reasons for that. We can go into that, and you guys could, if you disagree with me, you could put in your comments below why you think it should be something else. That's just my opinion. Anyway, let's look at the second item. Okay, guys, so the second thing is you need to have, and I'm going to give you a couple of options here because, depending on your situation, it may be a little bit different, but you need to have some capability to have emergency water, in a situation where the city water is not drinkable. Now, you don't have to look any further than the news stories to see all over the country there's been instances where people have had, not had the ability to use tap water. So, I recommend at least 2 weeks worth of water in your home as a very minimum. I would prefer that you go out to a month if you have the storage capacity to be able to do that. But some people don't. So if you don't, you can start out with, these are just some, 1 gallon jugs of water. This is going to last for several years. If you keep it in your basement or in a cool, dry place or whatever the case may be, where it's not getting a lot of sunlight and all that kind of stuff, it's going to stay good for a very long time. If you had some of these just lining the base of a closet, maybe you've got 20 or 30 gallons of it lining the base of a closet, you could take a piece of plywood, like 1/4-inch plywood, cut out, put it right over the top of it, still stack your shoes and stuff on it, and then that gives you a great place to store it. It really doesn't get in your way, and it makes your shoes easier to get in the morning. You know what I mean? Another option is, I recently did a review on the Alexa Pure home gravity water filter. That is a great option. It is kind of spendy, but it's a really good product. I think it's probably one of the best gravity-fed water filters out there. And the reason I like a gravity-fed filter is it doesn't take any electricity or anything like that, and they last a long time. Now, if you wanted to go with a budget option, you could just get the filter and then get a couple of plastic 5-gallon buckets and essentially recreate what they've created here. And that's only, this is about $100, whereas that's about $300. So it could save you a lot of money, but you still have the capability. You go buy a couple $7 buckets at Lowe's or Home Depot, you still have the ability to filter out a whole bunch of water for not a lot of cost. And this will take out just about everything as well. So if you want to look more details on this, you can see the review that I did on that. I'll try to remember to put the link in the description below. Now, the other option is, you just go with a basic, Katadyn Hiker Pro water filter, a little pump style filter, something along this lines. You know, it's not going to filter out as much as far as gallons, but it's definitely going to be able to get you through an emergency, and it's also going to be able to be used if you had to bug out, leave your home, or something along those lines. Backing up just for a second here, you could also bug out with this. You could take the 2 gallon, you could pack this into your pack. You could take the 2 buckets, and you could use the buckets to carry other stuff that you wanted to take with you, and then you'd have them when you needed to collect water from, an outdoor source or something like that. So, still a possibility as well. Just realize that you need to, with this filter, you want the water to be as clean as possible, so you want to try to pre-filter. If you get groundwater, you want to pre-filter it through a couple of layers of cloth or something like that, so that this filter will last longer. Okay, so that is pretty much just a few options. There's tons of different options out there. If you guys have any questions on different filters or anything like that, feel free to put questions in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer them. But water is very important. It's definitely in the top 5. Having the capability to either have water on hand or to filter or, even boil water at its most basic level is really, really important. All right, let's take a look at the next item. Okay, so now for the next item. So emergency food is the next item. And there are a lot of folks out there that recommend that you stock up emergency food with food that you normally eat. And I do agree with that principle. However, I don't agree with that principle when it's the first food that you buy when you first are getting into prepping. The reason I say that is because what I have found is when I stock up with food that I normally eat, oddly enough, I eat it. And so what ends up happening is in the storage that the extra stuff that you thought you had ends up getting dwindled away over time, and you don't have that true backup food. So I think it's a good idea to start out with getting some emergency food that comes in the form of, either dehydrated or freeze-dried food or something, like this Valley food storage stuff that's packed up in separate packages, and it's truly meant for emergency purposes. And the reason I say this is because it's got a 30-year shelf life, so it's going to be good throughout, the next couple of decades. And you can put it in a box, you can put it up on your shelf, and you can forget about it, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, later down the line, I do recommend that you stock up using food that you normally eat and keeping a good supply of food that you normally eat in your house. But right at the beginning, it's a good idea to have some of this stuff. Valley Food Storage is a great place to get some of this stuff. I've done reviews on it in the past. It tastes good. It's gluten-free. It's non-GMO. It's just really good food. They've got great packaging. It's a resealable Mylar bag, so you can open it, use some of it, and reseal it back up. I really like that a lot. And they've also just come out with a new line of frozen freeze-dried fruits and vegetables. So it's not just the pre-mixed meals like chicken and rice pilaf or chili mac and cheese or whatever the case may be. It's individual ingredients, that have been freeze-dried. So like strawberries, raspberries, red bell peppers, peas, broccoli, whole peas, all that kind of stuff, so that you can actually put together, meals somewhat in the same fashion that you normally would, in a normal situation. So I think that is another great option as well. As far as the amount goes, how much you would have, it's kind of the same way with the water. I think a minimum of 2 weeks would be great. But if you could afford a month per person, then that would be great. That should be definitely a goal that you strive for. Hey, if you've got 4 people in the family and you can only get a month's worth, then that's going to work as well. You can just try to add to that, as you get more time or as you get more resources and money and that kind of thing. So, but having that emergency food is critically important, and I highly recommend it. Let's take a look at the next item. All right, so the next thing is a good first aid kit. Now, the whole reason that we prepare is because bad situations happen. And during bad situations, a lot of times there can be injuries. So it's really important to have a well-stocked, good first aid kit that can be used for a wide range of things. Everything from the, nicks and scrapes and boo-boos all the way up to the advanced trauma kind of stuff, like a gunshot wound or something along those lines. Having the ability and the skills to use those items is also important, so I recommend taking a first aid class if at all possible. But this is a kit that I got off of Amazon. I want to say it was around $200, and it came very well stocked. I've added probably half again as much as it came with it on more specialized things and stuff. And I could do a review for you guys on this later on if you want, but it is cram-packed full of just about everything you could possibly need, all kinds of scenarios. So that is a good item. Here is another trauma kit that I think I've done a review on in the past. It was a kit from Elite First Aid that was also a fairly well, had a pretty good range of items that it would cover as well. So, having a good first aid kit is going to give you the ability to keep a bad situation from becoming a really crappy situation and a really, really bad situation, one that makes it even worse. Especially if you're in a situation where first responders aren't able to get to you and that kind of thing, then you need to have that ability right up front. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so the next item on the list is a good backpack. Now, the reason I throw this in here is because the chances are you're not going to have to leave your home, right? Probably an 80% chance so you're not going to have to leave your home. But in that 20% case that you did have to leave your home, I think it's a good idea to be able to take the stuff that you have, and throw it into a pack and then leave your house and take care of your needs wherever else. Maybe it's just you're going to somebody else's house that you know, a friend or a relative. Maybe you're just going to have to go down to the state park and camp for a few days. Maybe you got to go out in the national forest because it's some crazy disaster. Who knows what the situation is? But if you don't have the ability to go mobile on foot and take everything you need with you, in your pack, then it's going to make it a lot harder for you to make that jump to leave your house, right? So if you have the backpack, then you will be able to do so if it was needed as a last resort. So, as far as this backpack goes, this is my son's bug out bag, and it's just a Teton Sports Scout 3400. I picked it up off of Amazon. It's not an extremely high quality backpacking thing, but 90% of the time it sits right here in the basement, doesn't go anywhere. I'm not using it hardcore, he's not a backpacker, he's not out, hiking with it all the time and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't need to be the highest quality thing. I want to say I paid like $75 for it or something like that. It was very cheap. But it's actually constructed fairly well. And I definitely think that it'll hold up for several years, for him to use if we go camping as a family, or if we go, hiking or something, if we wanted to kind of test our skills with our bug out bags and that kind of thing, or in an actual disaster situation. So we've each got our own pack, each person in our family, and when I pack it up, I try to limit the amount of weight to 20 to 25% of the person's body weight. So that's kind of where we stick with that, and then we spread the items out that we need as a family as much as we can. There's also some redundancy built in there as well, but we do try to spread that out. So anyway, having that backpack will give you the ability to, even if you didn't have a sleeping bag, you can take a blanket or two and you can throw it in there. If you've followed these 5 things, you'd have some food that you can throw in there. You throw in a regular pot and your water filter or some additional water, some other stuff that you have around the house that's going to help you, be able to survive in the wild, and you're going to be good to go. So it doesn't have to be the perfect bug out bag, just to get you through a situation for a few days. So anyway, that is the last item on the list. One other thing that I will mention as kind of a bonus is that if you require any kind of medications or anything like that, then I highly recommend that you also talk to your doctor about getting maybe some extra as far as whatever your meds are. Or if your insurance company will allow, some insurance companies will allow you like 3 or 4 extra pills in a month or something along those lines, or a couple extra pills a month, and they'll renew before you're entirely out. Then you may be able to just put back a few of those meds by getting your prescription refilled as early as possible and keeping those couple of extra pills over a series of months. So just an idea, just a thought for you. Extra eyeglasses is also probably a good idea if you're really dependent on eyewear. Anyway, guys, as always, I definitely appreciate it when you click the thumbs up button, when you share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys.